Hi, and welcome to another episode of Journey to a Dream, brought to you by Kawasaki Insurance. This is something of a bonus episode because it features somebody that we spoke to not that long ago, and I'll put the link to the previous podcast on the podcast page because you really want to go back and listen to that one as well. It's really a story of friendship, a rather unusual cabaret act called Dort Dort Chicken, and also a tale of why you should never let a Manxman who's never been abroad before go to the shop in France. I'm going to start with you, Dicky, because we have spoken to you not so long ago when you came in with your boys ahead of their debut at the Southern. Tell me where we are and who you're with.
Sat here today with me was Mr. Des Founds, and we're in Team Founds awning. For once in my lifetime, there's only us here. I've never known this place so quiet. I first met Des in 1991. He brought an engine over for us. I head to the TT paddock and we went up to get the engine from him, and that's the first time I met the whole family. And they were using a frame tent in those days. They didn't have the caravan or nothing, just frame tent with the family and the bike in it.
Des, do you remember that meeting?
Sort of, yeah. I brought a Kawasaki engine over for Dick that a friend of mine was selling, and I knew the Kawasaki engine was a decent engine because I was always a little bit lithe parting with other people's equipment that wasn't up to scratch, because there was quite a few people who sold what you'd call dud engines.
Just give us a potted history of where racing started for you, Des.
It started for me, wow. Does my memory stretch back that far? I suppose it started back in 1970. when my wife bought me a Triumph Bonneville as a wedding present. And I always loved bikes. My dad had motorcycles, but they were ancient things. And I can remember actually working for my dad. He bought old Nissan huts out of disused army camps and RAF camps. And I was then 8, 9, maybe 10. And he used to give me £1 a day to clean bricks off and dismantle these army Nissan huts, which he then sold on as scout huts and village halls and the likes of that. He was a good engineer, my dad, but he didn't agree with the systems that were going. He was a staunch communist, and he lost a lot of jobs because of his political ways. And so we decided he'd go and do his own thing. So he did tree felling, and we sold logs. So I was chopping up logs, cutting logs up. He had a fish round. He had a vegetable round, which he went to, because we lived on a council estate. And that was basically how I'd sort of started with motorbikes. I was delivering logs to a guy's house, and there was an old motorcycle in the back covered in rags. And I said, "Oh, how much do you want for the motorbike?" And I can remember it quite well because I was then 12, so I was going to like the secondary modern school. And he said, £12, £12, same as your age, you can have it for £12. And it was a 500 OK Supreme, which was an ancient thing, a 1930 something. So told my dad I was going to buy it, and he went, "Well, it's your money, son. I'm giving you £1 a week, so I hope you earn it all." So all these RAF camps and army camps that we visited all had roads and a runway, so I was able to ride my bike on these things. But prior to getting the bike right, my dad used to say, "Right, let's take it back to the house." And he then showed me how to strip it down, lay all the components out. So you start from that end and you rebuild until you get to a finished bike in the middle. So that's basically how I started my motorcycling. And then I went after marrying Lynn, and she bought me the Bonnie. We rode everywhere on this Bonnie, going to different race circuits, watching race circuits, and I thought, I can have a go at this, I can do this. So I started production racing with the Bonneville, but because it was our only form of transport, I was forever falling off it. And so we'd come back from a race meeting with no footrests and Lynn sitting on the back with one foot on one side and no footrest on the other, and handlebar bent. And so I thought, do you know what, I can't keep on doing this. And besides that, we didn't have transport, so we used to take a big piece of plastic with us, put the bike in the middle, roll the plastic over both sides, and I slept in one side of the wheels and she slept on the other. So that was our tent and accommodation. We just had chocolate biscuits all day, basically. So I went to Rutland Park and I watched Pip Harris and Chris Vincent and some of the German crews, Scheidegger and those, and I thought, wow. And it was pudding bait in helmets then, it wasn't full face. And they came round Lodge Corner at Rutland Park and they had the biggest grin on their face. Wow, they are enjoying themselves so much. And there's me falling off every other week. I'm going to go for 3 wheels at least, I won't fall off that. So that's how I started sidecar racing.
And how then did you first come to the Isle of Man?
I had an accident. I had my left foot chopped off by the back act of a digger by a JCB. And I was a seaman then, I was a merchant seaman. So I came over with a group of friends of mine. We didn't have any accommodation. We slept in the bus shelters on the promenade in Douglas. So I'd forgotten my medication, and I came into Douglas, and I thought, well, I'll go and see if I can just get some aspirins or something to stop the pain, because I was in a big cast. And Lynn was then serving in like a chemist's shop. And that was my first meeting with her. And I'd recognised the face. I thought, wow, she's a stunner. So I then didn't see her then for about 18 months. And then it turns out that she's actually a relative of my brother-in-law. My brother-in-law turns out to be her uncle. So I'd seen this girl again in St Bridget's Church at their daughter's christening, and I fell in love with her. It was love at first sight. Seriously. People say, well, you just see somebody and that's it, you're just smitten. I was smitten. I was, honest to God. Now, 54 years later, I'm still smitten with her. So that's basically how I come to meet her and get the Bonneville and go sidecar racing. So she was my very first passenger, and she was only a passenger at one meeting at Aintree, and then said, I've got to tell you, I'm pregnant. Oh my God. What you go and do a thing like that for? We were enjoying ourselves. And that was the start of the Pounds dynasty. So she's the matriarch, really, of the family.
Lynn is in charge, that is a definite.
Let's just go back to those early 90s days then, Dicky, and Des has described how he first saw Lynn and he was smitten. Was it the same with you two in terms of sidecar relationship?
Love at first sight with us. And we just knew each other after that engine day, and it was always bumped into each other, always talked. And one day he rang me up and he said, I need a passenger for the TT. And this was 92?
Yeah, no.
91. He said, I need a passenger for the TT. Are you available? He said, no, you haven't got a ride this year. So we said...
I'd already researched this, you see.
Oh, you knew?
Oh, I sort of had a sneaky feeling. But I'd watched Dick's progress as a passenger, and I thought, he's typical of what I want. Because I was a little bit on the rough side, shall we say. I was renowned for swapping paint, shall we say.
And did you know this? You knew about his reputation as well?
Yeah, we all knew about Des. We'd bounced each other a couple of times on the circuits as it was. But I rang his ex-passenger up and I said, what do you reckon? And he said, you're going to have the time of your life. He said, I've moved on to Grand Prix now, otherwise I'd be still riding with him. And so I said to him, yeah, we'll do it. And then met him off the boat with the van, sorted out his parking space in the paddock for him, roped it all off, got the caravan registered.
I was the first person to bring a caravan to the Isle of Man, ever.
No way, really?
Seriously. I had to get a special permit from the Ministry of Transport, didn't we?
Yeah.
And they gave me a map on the route I had to take the caravan up to the paddock, because everyone had tents and trailer tents, and it was the very first caravan ever to come to the paddock. After that, like, everyone went, how did you do this? He's got a caravan. Everyone wanted their caravans.
Set the camp up and built the bike, because every time the bike arrived in boxes, which is the first time I'd seen that, but built the bike in the week leading up to the first early morning practice. And the first time we sat on the bike together was just before we went down Bray Hill, and came in after the end of the first lap, and he said, what do you think? I said, can we do another? And he said, yeah, of course we can. Turned round to Big Phil and Bunter, the mechanics. Put the more fuel in there, guys. And I looked at Big Phil and he looked at Bunter, and they just shook the can. And I thought, something's wrong here. But they went over and they poured the petrol into the tank. And they said, right, Des, let's go. Come on, Dick, we get on. Boom, jumped on the bike, off down Bray Hill. What we didn't know, they put all the fuel that they had in the bike, and they got in the van and went to Parliament Square and Ramsey, because they thought we'd only get to Ramsey. As it was, we got to Kirkmichael, ran out of petrol in Kirkmichael, borrowed fuel off a guy in Kirkmichael out of his lawnmower.
We actually went round the back of people's houses and scavenged more than a gallon out of all the lawnmowers that are down that road, so I don't think anyone mowed the lawn that week, because all the fuel went in our bike.
Ironically, we'd pulled in at Kirkmichael petrol station that wasn't open, so we got on the bike and went back once the road's open, the wrong way round the circuit, back to the paddock. No sign on the mechanics. And they were sitting in Ramsey eating ice cream, and we're back at the campsite. By the time they got back, Des had made the breakfast.
I wasn't allowed to touch the bike then, because they said, you're a bodger. You can build a bike and you can ride a bike, but you're not going to touch it. We're doing it. You'll just go and cook the breakfast. So I had my caravan there, and I had all the cooking going on. And I used to cook for something like 22 people. Seriously. It became known as Desi's Diner, and people used to bring their friends, come on, we'll go to Desi's Diner and have breakfast. And so it wasn't unusual for an extra 5 or 6 people to come along and say, is there any chance of any breakfast? Yeah, go on, just grab a seat. You'll have to be second sitting though. So what we started doing then was I brought everything. It might have been quite illegal at the time, but I used to bring oxyacetylene bottles because I made all my own chassis. I mean, Ken Sprayson was doing his welding, and that was incredible. His service was second to none. There's no doubt about that. I was an amateur compared to what he was doing. But it was dead handy for people to come along and say, can you just braze this up, or can you just weld this bracket? And we started saying, well, look, we're running out of oxygen. We can't pay for oxygen or acetylene or spanners and stuff like that. Everything was being loaned out. We said, right, we'll have to have something that sort of limits, or at least we make fun out of it. So we said, right, okay, what we'll do is, if they come along, they've got to sing a song. If they borrow anything or have anything out of this camp, they've got to sing a song or dance with Big Phil. Now, Big Phil was 30-odd stone then, and so what he used to do was put his hands down, clench them round their bottom and lift them onto his stomach and then bounce them round like a pogo stick. Or they sang a song.
Those Hells Angels.
We had an Hells Angel come along with about 8 or 10 of his mates, and he said he was a Cockney. My Cockney accent isn't brilliant, but right, mate, I got this swing your arm like, I got it, and he was effing and blinding, and yeah, it's broken here, and one of the legs off this LCR had snapped off. So I believe you can sort it all out now. Yes, yeah, okay, pal. I'll sort it out. Could you come back this afternoon? I'll have it all done for you. So I sleeved it and welded it all up and brazed everything up. It was all back, cleaned it, and we even put a little bit of spray paint on so it was like brand new again. So we came back in the afternoon with all his mates, like, yeah, all like this. Yeah, have you got it, mate? Yeah, it is. Bloody hell. Well, it wasn't bloody hell, but it was similar. He said, oh, fantastic. Oh, bloody great. How much do I owe you, mate? I said, you don't owe me anything. I said, but you're not getting it back until you sing a song or you dance with that big fat fella there. Oh, I ain't up stairs and with that. I said, well, you got to sing a song. Oh, I can't sing. I can't sing a song. I said, come on, you can sing a song. Oh, I can't, mate, I bloody can't. I said, you must know a nursery rhyme. So he said, yeah, I do. I know a nursery rhyme. I said, well, do a nursery rhyme. What we used to do then, as soon as people had agreed to sing or dance, we'd just start shouting, sing it, we gotta sing it, shouting our heads off in the paddock. So there'd be hundreds, literally hundreds of people that come running up to the camp. And, oh, Jesus Christ, there's an audience, like. So this guy says, I said, right, OK, no, I can't. I said, you're not getting your swing arm back then, mate, I'm selling you now. I'll flog it before I give it you back. So he said, all right, OK, I can do it. But Mary had a little lamb, its fleece was white as... Well, we were just creasing ourselves with laughter. Everybody just burst out laughing that this Hell's Angel was doing Mary Had a Little Lamb.
I've got to point out, this Hell's Angel was built like a rugby league prop forward. He was huge, but he had a voice like a soprano. And all his gang was stood behind him, and they're all going, shaking their heads with their mouths, their jaws on their chest, because they couldn't believe their leader was doing this in front of all of us.
We had lots of fun. We made the paddock, we made our camp and the paddock a lot more entertaining, shall we say. I can remember Joey Dunlop and Brian Reid coming up to the camp in a car, and they wanted something, and I said, yeah, OK, I can loan you that and I can do this, but we need a song. And they started singing, what was the name of it? The Irish Rover. Yeah. And like, they sang for about 5 or 10 minutes and then got in the car. And as the car drove away down the paddock, they're still singing as the car was going off down the road. And with people going, do you know who that was? I said, yeah, of course I know who it was, but he ain't bloody leaving this camp until he sung a song. It got to the state where lots of people then were sending their newcomer gophers, go up to Des Pounds and say, we need a 10mm spanner or a 3/8 Ringworth bottle or whatever, because they knew that he'd have to sing a song for it, or dance with me, Phil.
While the gopher was on the way up, they were already going up the other road, so they could be there to watch it. On top of them, there was the chicken.
Do I want to know about the chicken?
The Dork chicken. That was the best piece of cabaret that we ever did, the Dork chicken. We've done it for free drinks all around pubs we broke down at and around the island and hotels on the promenade.
Is that something you can recreate now? I mean, what is Dork chicken?
It's a visual thing, yeah.
Okay.
We could
What it is, we'd make you sit on the edge of your seat with your legs wide open, and then
with your clothes on.
Yeah, and then I would go down on my hands and knees like this, and then I'd pretend to be a chicken, so I'd go and I'd be ducking my head up and down. So the idea was that you were to try and catch my ears and catch the chicken. Well, it was virtually impossible. I think I'd been caught, well, I'd just been slapped on the top of my head once, but I've never actually been caught.
But if they were getting too close or getting a bit good at it, I was the straight man that went in and put them off. Well, Des got his breath back.
So it was called the Dork chicken.
It's a real shame that this hasn't happened in the age of social media.
But it did get filmed by Harry, didn't it? Harry Vision, Bruce Moore's dad. He videoed a fair few of these. And the spoof radio interview with Big Phil interviewing you.
Yeah, I think because the racing was quite intense then, the roads were seriously bumpy. And I think it was a way of lightening our way and just making the camp feel as if there wasn't a lot of tension there. It was just lightening up the whole thing. And it was a family thing, of course. So all the kids would get involved, and that was always good.
And Franco always used to get involved. Mr. Martinell with his illegally smuggled in homemade red wine and grappa.
In the paddock, there's always a light standard with the electricity. And so we tried to make our camp area, we'd be at the top, so there was always the English at the top. Franco would be down one side, Albert Hanna and his Irish crew were down the other side, and Jack Muldoon, the Scots crew, would be on the other side. So the light was in the middle, and there was an encampment of all the nations, as it were. So it was good. It was really good fun. It was.
And in terms of your racing career together, how would you assess that, how that went?
Damn good fun. Always up near the front charging. As Des said in the past, he had a habit of kissing the valves, would get overexcited. We always used to find a pub to break down at. The one time we didn't, we got stuck at Bishop's Court. And I got off the bike and said, you've cocked it up this time, there's not a pub anywhere around here for miles, I have to walk to the Raven. And next thing there was a rustling in the bushes behind us, and this fella stuck his head out, a big German guy, and he said, hello, would you like a beer? What? Where'd you come from? Oh, we're watching though now, I've come up the field. Here's 2 beers. Handed us 2 beers at Bishop's Court. Next thing, Helmut Luneman broke down there alongside as well, and he come in, where'd you get the beer from? Them Germans up there. That's the best beer in Germany, that. Well, yeah, you get it on the Isle of Man.
And it's really interesting, Des, because you talked about it being a family affair then, and it really is now. I mean, we're sitting here on the Southern 100 paddock. Dicky's boys going out for their first Southern. Obviously, your boys very, very familiar with this course, and obviously TT, MGP as well. What does that mean to both of you to have your sons really following in what you've done?
Very, very proud. Yeah, I'm very, very proud. I'm also proud of Dicky's lads as well, because I saw them growing up in the paddock, and I always knew that you grow up in the paddock around a racing family, you're always going to want to emulate what your dad's done or what your uncle's done or your brothers, and I think that goes for all families though. For sidecar people, I don't think you could be any other way. It's a way of life. This racing is a way of life. It isn't just something that your dad does, or it's something that involves everybody. And that's what I think makes the sidecars quite different from the solos. And I'm sure there are solos who knock around together, whose sons and brothers and sisters follow the same system. But I think the sidecars are more of a collective family rather than an individual team. Yesterday there was 2 other sidecar teams came here and they took bits out of Pete's bike and have you got other stuff? Yeah.
Did they not have to sing for it?
Well, we did think about it. But I think things have moved on. It's lovely. It's just nice being involved with watching how our children have grown up. And I think that's the big thing. I think you get your kicks, your adrenaline, not just on the track, but watching how the teams are trying to be more professional, helping other people. And then, of course, you get all your followers on and other people who want to come and help and donate money. And that's lovely. I just love the family thing in it.
And you really have got the next generation here with your grandson. I saw him bobbing up and down on his little bike as well.
Yeah. Well, we're a 3rd generation racing at the moment. Alan has got my daughter's son on, so there's a grandson coming in there. Pete's brought his young son along as well, so he's sort of itching and waiting. Oh, I can't wait to get my licence and I'll have a go. And that's how it was with me when I first started racing. You know, as soon as the boys were 16, I want a licence. Right, you're going to passenger. Well, and then when the passengering thing, I want to race. I want to drive. Okay, come on. You'll spend your evenings in the garage with me building a bike. And then I'll build you your own bike, but you need to know how it's built.
And that's the ethos you really got from your dad.
It was really, yeah, it was, exactly. And I think most kids that are brought up properly with respect pass on that respect. And to me, that's how our generation is trying to emulate, show the kids, look, this is the way you... It's not just about the racing, it's about the way you live life and the way you treat other people in life.
And Dicky, I mean, it's obviously still very early days in the Southern 100 meeting. Fortunately, there were the 2 newcomer laps last night. How did the boys get on?
They got round, they got back. Ryan and Callum came up to us after their signing on and said it should be a sidecar leading the newcomer sidecars so that at least the newcomer passengers can see what they're supposed to be doing. And I said, it's a damn good idea that. Let's go and see Giles and see if they'll allow it. And Giles was all for it. Brilliant. So we had it set up that Ryan and Callum would go first. Jim and Ben would follow them. Then Alan and Reese would follow Jim and Ben, and others would follow Alan and Reese. And it was all set up. And Mowgli Kieran Clark, followed up at the tail to make sure if anybody got dropped by the guys going a bit too quick for them, he'd get in front of them and make sure they followed him. So it was all set up.
And again, that goes back to what Des was saying about there is just something special within the sidecar community and that real desire to support each other.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Funny because when I first raced the 350s with Dicky, I'd never ever ridden a two-stroke in my life. Never. I couldn't get this thing started. And Bran Bardsley came along with Kate.
It's Bran Bardsley's daughter.
And she was only a young girl then, and said, Kate, run back to the caravan. There's 2 brown boxes in the bottom, underneath the seats. Brought up 2 brand new carburetors, put them on, the bike just started like that. So that was sort of going back when I first came to the TT with a 2-stroke. I'd ridden here lots of times with a 4-stroke, but 2-strokes were a new novelty to me. And then to have support like that of somebody who I knew who was a real good supporter of sidecars, but just to say, right, yeah, put them on your bike, let me have them when you're finished. That was lovely. To sort of fulfil my idea in my head. Listen, we've got to help everybody here. We've got to help each other, otherwise this sport is going to die off.
Bran did the same, didn't he, to Jeff Rush, with Jeff Rushbrook, because Jeff's bike went on fire going up the mountain mile. The crankshaft went and piston came out the back, knocked the carburettor off, and puff, the whole thing went up in smoke. So Jeff was completely bereft, didn't have anything left. And Bran turned around to him and said, I want the bike for the Southern 100, but you can have my bike all the rest of the year. And you race it then, and I'll have it for the Southern 100. And that was it. Jeff was back racing again.
I just want to go back, Des, because you obviously had this idea in mind when you asked Dicky to be the passenger.
Yes. He was a Manxman, and so he obviously knew where he was going. How quick he could go, I don't know.
Just explain to people how important it is for the passenger, because it doesn't seem that the passenger has any say in how quick you go.
He doesn't, but he also can make the bike go slower. He can affect the handling of the bike like you wouldn't believe. He isn't a passenger as such. He's a co-driver. He is a co-driver, there's no doubt about that. He can make the bike steer like, whoa, what's happening to this thing? And it's the passenger who's affecting how the bike is handling. So he's a co-driver, really, he isn't a passenger.
After you'd done your first few laps around the mountain course, what was your assessment of him then?
I remember coming, what are you doing here, Dick? Are you getting out for that? No, I'm not getting out for that. What? He frightened me to death. He literally frightened me. I thought, jeez, well, we got round okay, and the bike felt really good. And so I'd sort of said to him, do I want you to back? Listen, you just do what you want, because you know what you're doing, and I'm happy with how the bike is handling. And we had we were in the sharp edge of the TT against, I didn't have the machinery that some of the guys up front had, but I had the willpower and the motivation to know that both Dicky and I could be up there with the front runners.
If we'd had the money, yeah. Do you remember that night early in the evening practice when Rob Fisher caught us up coming around Ballyspur, and I looked back and I seen Rob there. So I tapped Des to let him know that the quicker guy was coming up behind us, and we just kept going. Rob never passed us. When we looked back coming out of Sarah's after Glen Helen, and he wasn't there anymore. Oh, he's broken down. When we got to Kirkmichael, Rob went flying past us. And when we got back into the ladies' heaven in the grandstand, I said to him, I said, what happened to you? Did you have a problem? He said, I couldn't stick with you two. He said, you're so quick through that section from Ballyspur down to Cronkerfuddy Straight. He said, I couldn't stay with you. I've learnt a new line through there tonight. We must have been doing something right.
And how long did you stay racing together?
6 seasons.
Yeah, 6 or 7 seasons.
2 years after I got married in 94, so 96 was our last year together, wasn't it?
Yeah, but I remember taking Dicky. I didn't just race here, I like to race abroad as well. I like to take the family aboard.
This is embarrassing.
I don't think Dicky had ever been off the Isle of Man.
Never had a passport.
So we said, right, you've got to get yourself a passport, and we're going to start doing some of these foreign meetings in Belgium and France and Germany. Right, okay, yeah, I'll get one sorted. He got his thing, and I remember the very first time we went abroad, we were going down the M1, going down to Dover to get the ferry across, and we had a blowout on the van because the van was loaded to the gunnels. Right, okay, well, we'll have to take half the stuff out of the van because the spare wheel's on the bottom. Anyway, we were getting the wheel out and changing everything. Where's Dicky? And Dicky, believe it or not, was wandering up and down the hard shoulder, admiring these trucks going past him. And we ran up. Jesus, what good, Dicky, but you can't. Well, I'm just watching it. I know, but if you go that close, the drat of it's going to pull you into the road and you won't know what hit you, mate. It'll be another truck. He frightened us. Never mind the racing. That's our closest moment to losing him ever.
You've never been allowed to forget that, have you?
No. There's quite a few others. The same trip, we got off the boat in France, and it was pulling at a service station. And this is how gullible and green I was in those days. Pulled into the service station. Des and them go off to get food and all that kind of stuff. I go into the shop. First thing I do, 10-litre bottles of drinking water. What do you got that for? Because you don't drink the water when you're abroad, do you? You have to bring it with you. Don't be so stupid. Put it back. Go and get your money back. Oh, they wouldn't let me have the money back. So I had 10 litres of water to carry around with me all the time. And then he sent me into the town to do the shopping. Manxman, in a village store. I had one of his mates, Billy.
Yeah.
Billy was with us. And he says, right, yeah. Oh, we'll get some of that pork, we'll get some of that, we'll get some... Oh, I fancy some tomatoes, we'll get some tomatoes as well. And the woman... Blah, 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 blah. I said, huh? Oh, maybe she's wanting to know how many we want. I said, 2. 2? What? Boom, 2 kilos of tomatoes. Got back to the camp. What the heck have you done with that? Well, he didn't say heck. What? Well, you can eat them all. And with that many tomatoes, we ended up throwing them at other sidecar teams because we couldn't bring them back with us. Oh, I'll tell you, this guy made me, turn me into the man I am now. I wouldn't have been married if it weren't for him. We'd met Monica. Monica and me had met, like we said in the last episode. Make it sound like a series, this, doesn't it?
I think there could be a series here.
And we went to do a race meeting in Chimay, wasn't it? Chimay in Belgium. And Monica drove up from Zurich on a motorbike by herself. She stayed the weekend with us. We did the race meeting, packed up on the Monday, head off for the ferry. She headed off down the road, and he turned around and he says, well, you going to marry her? Well, it's a bit early for that. No, it's not. Get it in your head now. He said, this is 1993, you're going to marry her in a year. And TT the following year, we got married.
There was a sparkle in their eyes that I could see. It was so obvious that they were meant to be together. Seriously, even me as a dumb whatever with 5 kids, I just knew that she was going to be for him. I just knew it. It was like my first meeting when I first in. You get this sixth sense that, you know what, she's fantastic. It's going to make him grow up, really.
Made me grow up so much I cleaned my teeth with flipping suntan lotion the following day, didn't I?
Yeah.
They got me that drunk on Belgian beer. When I got up in the morning, I went to clean my teeth. I'm taking suntan lotion with me instead of toothpaste. It doesn't taste nice, I'll tell you that, but you get nice shiny teeth.
I get the feeling we could sit here all day and recall some of the stories, escapades that you two got into. Is the one that maybe stands out for both of you is the one that maybe sort of summed up your friendship and your career?
For me, it's Tresca. This is another tradition that Des got me into. Early morning practice. First lap you go and you get your lap in. On the second lap, as you come out a windy corner, we always broke down, and I couldn't understand why we were breaking down. And there's the little lane that goes up to the rifle range up there. There's a German guy stood there with his motorbike.
Sidecar, yeah, motorbike and sidecar.
Yeah.
Blue one.
Come over. Oh, Des, you've come for your morning warm-up. Yes, Tresca. I didn't know what heck was going on. Next thing, 3 glasses appear and a bottle of schnapps. Prost! Okay, I get used to this tradition. And had a glass of schnapps with Tresca and back to the paddock.
So that was my warm-up. It became a tradition. Every second lap,
only for early morning.
We'd pull into the side. Tresca would run down. Sometimes he'd be there with the schnapps, and all I'd have to do was flip my visor up and he'd fire the schnapps into us. He had a honker and a bicycle bell. So after the morning practice had finished, his name was Wilhelm Wagner, and he came from Koblenz. And I went to meet him and meet the family at Koblenz. But Trester was his nickname because he brewed his own schnapps, and his own schnapps was called Trester schnapps. So he was known affectionately as Trester. What his thing was, he opened the boot of his sidecar and he got this glass out. And this was a glass which must have been nearly half an inch thick. A little small glass, like a whiskey glass, but thick as my finger. And I'd say, what kind of glass is this, Trester? Where did you get this from? Ha ha, he said. This is a filter bowl off a Panzer tank. I said, no, it's true, he said. He had a barrel in the boot of his sidecar with this schnapps in, this Trester schnapps. And he'd put it underneath, open the valve, half fill the glass and go, Entschuldigen Sie bitte, just for testing, because this might be poison. And he'd drink, yes, that is good for you. And then he'd give you his. And we knew Trester for years and years and years. And he was always known as the German guy who waved to you at Windy Corner. Everyone knew, there's this German guy who waves to everybody up there, doesn't he? Oh, I thought he was waving to us. No, he was waving to me. And everybody then said, do you know what? He waves to everybody, doesn't he? But there was only one sidecar crew he gave us schnapps to.
Just listening to how well you obviously did on the course, but also in terms of your friendship as well, I suppose the question is, why did you stop racing together?
Des decided to retire. Our last TT together would have been 97, and Jim was born. Yeah, Jim was actually born at the time. We did the first race.
98.
Yes, 98. We did the first race, and it all went reasonably well. Came to the second race, and we couldn't get the bike to start. No matter what we did, we even went up and asked for a place at the end of the grid so we could get out, and it wouldn't go at all. And so we pushed the bike back.
352 stroke.
No, we were on the 600 Yam then.
Yes.
The 4-stroke, and he put it back into the tent, and Des says, well, that's it for the day, forget about it. Nothing else was touched on the bike apart from put it in the van. When they took it out of the van at home, Des' son Chris went, let's just try it. Pressed the button and it started. That's when he rang me up and he said, that's a message, Dick, I'm going to stop.
You name it, and we had changed it. I'm good enough to know what can go wrong with a bike, and we changed coils, carburetors, ignition switches, on-off switches, petrol pump, everything that you could think of, we changed, and that bike refused to start. And I said to Dick, do you know, there's something saying that you're not going out today, mate. And so I said, no, that's it, forget it, we'll put the bike away. So I was that disappointed. I can remember the day vividly. Lynn said, what are you doing? I said, we're going down to Douglas. I'm going to go and book some tickets and go on holiday because I've got to be away from here. I was so upset. I had tears running down my face because I loved racing in the Isle of Man. It was my all. It was a world to me. So we went and we booked holiday and we flew out from the Isle of Man, me and Lynn, to Tenerife, and we left the kids, because the kids were quite grown up, and they brought the van back with the bike in the back, and that's how Chris just rolled it out of the van, fired it up, and it just started. So that to me said, do you know what, it's time for you to retire, son, because somebody's saying you've had a hell of a good time, you've injured yourself a few times, but you've got away with it, call it a day. So I rang Dick and said, Dick, I'm sorry mate, but that's me, I'm going to retire. I've got two boys who want to go racing. I'll put my efforts into them now.
The bike went down a generation, so Des' eldest lad, Chris, took it on as a driver, and Pete, the Southern 100 champion now, was his passenger. So, and it was a bike that they'd had the first bike that Des and me rode on together as a 4-stroke that he built himself, and we developed that, passed it on to them for their first bike. Well, Des built a new one, which turned out to be our last bike together, and that got passed on to Chris and Pete, and they did their first TTs on it.
How amazing. And here we are sitting in the Founds tent. I mean, there's a little bit of rain outside, but we don't worry about that, do we, Des? The Isle of Man still clearly for you now, through what your children are doing, has still got that same pull.
Of course, yeah. I mean, you know, I just love this place. I'm married a Manx girl, and so my heart is here. I've actually said to the gang, when my elbows start touching timber on either side, and I'm down below but not breathing, I want all my ashes brought here. Because I sail here normally in my boat. When I retired, I bought a yacht, so I sail. And the wind's free. I'm a scouser nearly. I'm coming over here for nothing. So I thought, right, OK, I want half my ashes scattered on the Irish Sea coming over here, and I want the other half round the mountain, because the mountain, I love the mountain. But I was torn between the Glen Ellen section and all the way through there, because that is just flat out. And it is just flat out, and it's just, you get such a buzz. If you've never done it, you can just imagine having your very first ice cream or your very first chocolate bar. That's what it's like. That's the feeling you get when you're driving along the Isle of Man TT circuit.
That's why sidecar people don't need to take drugs, because that's the drug that you need.
That's well spoken, Dick. That's a fantastic thing for any youngster.
Praise?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Well, I've got to give him some credit. He's got two lovely boys here, and he's brought them up how I'd like to bring my boys up, and that's with respect for other people, but mainly respect for yourself. Have respect for yourself.
And just finally, Des, I asked this question to Dicky when we were talking to Jim and Ben as well. For you, standing on the sidelines when you're watching them set off from the start line, what is that whole thing like for you?
I'm terrified. I'm frightened. I'm frightened for them, but no, I'm also so proud, because I've watched them race now and come on leaps and bounds, and even here where there's mass start, and I've seen footage of them, and I'm thinking, oh my goodness me, God, they shouldn't be doing this, really. And then people go, hang on a minute, you were like that? They've learnt all this off you. And OK, all right, but I'm immensely, immensely proud. I think that's the biggest thing. I'm immensely proud. And I wouldn't have had them doing anything other. I mean, they all played ice hockey, believe it or not, and were blooming good. Pete was selected for Great Britain ice hockey, and Alan was selected for England ice hockey. So I knew that they had whatever they put their head to, they were going to do well at. Because it's all about having a confidence and trust in yourself.
Yeah. This friendship between you two clearly still as strong as ever.
He's got me all emotional by saying nice things about me. I've never known it before.
I love him. Oh. I love him like a brother. Ah. I do, seriously. We go back so far that it's everything I've ever wanted here. Dick would have given me. And you stop crying, will you?
It's like this year's TT. Race 1, 6 guys on the rostrum. I knew 5 of them when they were in nappies. That's good enough.
It's lovely. It is. It's a special place, this. And all you Manx people who listen to this, just be so proud of where you live and what you've got here, because people on the mainland crave for what you've got.
Des Founds and Dicky Gale, and genuinely I think there could be a series with those two. Honestly, it was just brilliant. Could have spoken to them all afternoon. I should say at this point we recorded this during the Southern 100 2024, and it was before Alan Founds and his partner Rhys Gibbons, so Des's son and nephew, had an incident on the Thursday of the Southern 100. Fortunately, they were both okay, and that's why we've been able to put this podcast out. Thank you so much for listening. If you haven't heard Dicky Gale's podcast with his sons Jim and Ben yet, that's also available on this site. Journey to a Dream is brought to you by Kawasaki Insurance. You can find out how you can get covered by going to kawasaki-insurance.co.uk. And until next time, take care. Bye-bye.